what I think is that Travis Hunter is going to be a full-time corner and a package receiver in the NFL. That's what I think. I could be totally wrong, and, that may not be the case at all.
You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a Wisdom Wednesday presented, of course, as always, by DraftKings. The crown is yours. We're getting the wisdom from Greg Cosell. We're talking wide receivers. His draft prospect series has been extremely popular. We got the top receivers today. You can, of course, always go back, check out the former episodes, including youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. But we also had two pieces of huge news in the NFL that we will get to after the big show.
The Big Show.
We are continuing the Greg Cosell positional draft series, which is killing it on YouTube, by the way. YouTube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. Makes sense, right? People will search Greg Cosell, top quarterbacks, top running backs, top wide receivers. Today, it's wide receivers. Remember, you can go back and listen or watch a couple episodes of Greg talking about the quarterbacks. We did running backs last week. Today, it is the receivers. And as I like to do, Greg, I don't tell you the rankings. I don't tell you who to talk about first. I am curious to know if there was a guy in particular that really jumped out to you from this year's receiving corps, which, by the way, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Everybody else is indicating, Greg, they don't think it's quite where the receiver draft classes have been in recent years. Is that something that you noticed as well?
It's probably fair. Although the thing is, Ross, is, as you probably know, and most people do who follow the draft closely, is the receiver position is usually the most drafted position every single year. There's more than 30 receivers drafted in every draft. And the belief, of course, is that you can find receivers in the draft. Now, again, is there a Jamar Chase in every draft? And obviously, Jamar Chase just got paid. But is there a Jamar Chase in every draft? No, but you can certainly find receivers. So I think that my guess is there'll be quality receivers in this draft once they get to the NFL. They just may not be evaluated that way to start.
I believe you on receivers. I guess my instinct would have been that more corners get taken, but certainly it feels
that's right
like
up there. Corner. It's funny you say that. Those are the two positions that almost every year, there are a few exceptions, but those are the two positions that are the most drafted pretty much on an annual basis.
Yeah, because what stands out to me is that I feel like there's more plays with 3 and 4 corners than there are plays with 3 and 4 receivers, and also corners would seem to me to be more likely to help you on special teams than receivers. Although there's a lot of guys, Greg. I love when a guy figures out, hey, I'm gonna stick as a 4th receiver special teams demon.
Right.
Like I love when a guy the light goes on in the guy's head and he realizes that's actually a lot of value for this team.
Yeah. So, having said that, there's certainly receivers that I liked on tape. I mean, it's not as if there were no receivers in this draft. And just so people understand, I saw a lot of these receivers before the combine. Now, obviously, I've seen more since because I'm grinding away every single day, and I kind of jump around with positions. That's kind of the way I do my work. I can't watch 10 receivers in a row because unless they're totally different, they all start to look the same. So I can't do that. But a lot of these receivers I actually saw before the combine. So what happened at the combine really had no bearing on my worldview.
Was there a number one guy or a guy that really jumped out that you loved, Greg?
The guy that jumped out to me, and again, I saw him before the combine, was Matthew Golden from Texas. And he obviously ran exceptionally well. I don't think he plays exactly to his 4.29 40-yard dash time at the combine. But to me, I thought that he has really good route running refinement. I thought that he had separation quickness. I thought he worked from multiple splits in Steve Sarkisian's offense, and that's an offense that does a lot with the pass game. I thought he had a really good feel as a route runner with the pace and tempo of different routes, changing speeds through his vertical stem. I think he's a 3-level dimension. I think there's a vertical element to his game. He was a receiver that I thought would be ascending when he gets to the league. And he's not this receiver at all in terms of traits, but the receiver last year that I felt watching his college tape that would ascend once he got to the league was Brian Thomas. And that worked out that way. And I think Matthew Golden, to me, kind of falls into that category. I think he'll be an ascending player once he gets to the NFL.
It's so interesting to me, Greg, that both you and Emery Hunt on the College Draft podcast said that you don't think he necessarily plays to his 4.29. I mean, I guess I would just say that really speaks something to him.
Well,
if you already liked him before
Ross.
you ran that, but you know he has that in his body.
Yeah, I can expand on that. But by what I meant by that is there are certain receivers that when you watch them on tape, they run a lot of vertical routes. They're able to get on top of corners, and you go, wow, that guy's a vertical dimension. He can just really run, and he's going to run by people. Golden was not necessarily like that. Now, maybe as he further develops more route running nuance and subtlety and detail, which ideally should be the case once he gets to the NFL and gets further coached, maybe that will show up and he will become a true vertical dimension into being in addition to being a pretty complete receiver overall. That could well happen. But when you watch his tape, you don't come away going, oh my God, that guy can just run like the wind. That's not the impression you get watching him.
Was there a next guy, Greg, that stood out to you that you really liked?
I mean, there's two guys that I really like, and I'm curious, to see how they do in the NFL. Let's start with the Arizona kid. I think that he's a really interesting player, McMillan. And he's fascinating because I liked him, I think, more than some do. He is big. He's long. Now, you wouldn't call him sudden and explosive. Guys that big normally are not like that. But he's incredibly smooth. I think he moves better than people might think because they immediately associate the length with the fact that, he's a possession type guy. The comparison that a lot of people immediately made was Drake London. And obviously Drake London put up big numbers with the Falcons this year and is a really good quality NFL receiver. I like McMillan more. I think there's a little more juice to him. I think that he moves. He's not Justin Jefferson. I don't want people to believe I think he's like that. But I think he moves better than just a big, tall, smooth receiver. He's really good after the catch, very easy mover. He's got great hands. As I said, run after catch is a strength of his game. His catching radius is ridiculous. He pretty much catches everything. I thought, to me, one of the things that really stood out, and the way the NFL game has evolved, Ross, with a lot more short throws, run after catch, I thought that what really stood out was how seamless his transition from receiver to run after catch was. It was so smooth and so easy, and I think that's become a really significant factor in the NFL today.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, especially a bigger bodied guy, if he's able to do that on in-breaking routes and stuff. Yeah. It feels like, I don't know what happened. I mean, I don't pay attention to it as closely as other people do, but everybody's talking about him, top 10, best receiver all season. And all of a sudden, he hasn't played any games. And now you hear people saying, oh, no, he's not really that good, or he'll go lower. I don't know how that happens sometimes where.
Yeah, that's just, it's funny because I do all my tape work and, once I do my tape work, I'm done. So, I don't get caught up in, well, this guy's moving up or this guy's moving down. That doesn't really mean anything to me. It's just like with Cam Ward. who everybody's now talking about being the first pick, and I hear a lot of people talking. As you know, I said that a month ago. I said that before the combine because I was finished with all his tape study before the combine. So the other stuff doesn't really become important to me. So, I'm watching the tape. Now, again, I don't know the players, so there could be personal issues with guys. I don't know that, as you know. We don't discuss that. But, as far as the tape study, this is what I saw with McMillan. It doesn't matter to me, where mock drafts have him or what people say at this point.
You said after Golden, you said there were two guys that kind of stood out to you. One was
McMillan.
T-Mac, Tetairoa McMillan. Who's the other?
Luther Burden from Mizzou. I think, to me, he's sudden, he's explosive, he's dynamic. He predominantly lined up inside in Missouri's offense, but he did have meaningful snaps outside. But he was used in motion, and that's another really important part when you look at receivers and the way the NFL game is evolving. You know this, Ross. You cover games. There's more and more motion in the NFL, and guys who have experience as motion receivers, to me, that's an advantage. And while Burden may not have the terrifying speed of someone like Jamison Williams, the tape clearly showed that he can take the top off the defense. See, there's an example where we just spoke about Golden and the 4.29. When you watch Burden, you go, wow, this guy can run by people. There's just a slightly different feel when you're watching him. You go, wow, this guy's going to get on top of corners. So he's a 3-level dimension. I think he can line up anywhere in your formation. As I said, he's got the motion experience. To me, he's a fascinating prospect.
So here we are. And you've mentioned 3 receivers. You have not mentioned the name Travis Hunter. We have not talked about Travis Hunter, you and I. So does that mean you think he's a corner? Does that mean you think you don't think he's a receiver? Does it mean you think that these other 3 guys are better than receivers? Where are you right now with Travis Hunter, Greg?
Well, obviously, what I think about Travis Hunter doesn't mean anything as far as what teams think, but I think what I think is that Travis Hunter is going to be a full-time corner and a package receiver in the NFL. That's what I think. I could be totally wrong, and that may not be the case at all. I think Travis Hunter is a good receiver. He's terrific run after catch. They may have run more screens than any team in the country. That could have well been a function of the offensive line and Pat Shurmur, the OC, believing that, hey, that's the way we get the ball in the hands of Travis Hunter. We don't have a great run game. Our O-line's not great. Let's just throw screens and get the ball to the best athlete on the field. But I personally believe that Travis Hunter will play corner. He went to the combine as a corner, which means to me that his advisors and maybe NFL teams said, hey, you're a corner. But I think there'll always be package plays for Travis Hunter as a receiver. But I think he'll be a full-time corner.
Okay, so let's talk about him as purely a receiver, because there are people that will tell you that they think he would be the best receiver in this draft. I can tell by the way you're talking about him, you do not agree with that. You do not think that he would be the best receiver in this draft.
I think he's a really good prospect as a receiver as well. As I said, he's phenomenal run after catch. You saw enough route running to believe that he can do that at a higher level with more experience and more coaching when he gets to the next level. I think he could be a very good receiver. We'll see how it plays out. As I said, I don't think he'll end up being a full-time receiver, but he's got quality traits as a receiver, that's for sure. And just in terms of run after catch, he's really, really good.
I went to one of their practices. His ball skills and his ability to pluck it out of the air were really, he just has a natural, like when he goes up for it, it was really impressive to watch. It's almost like a baseball player. You saw that
when he played corner. You saw that when he made interceptions at corner. He's got tremendous ball skills. He's got great hands. Look, he's got receiver traits. I don't want to act like I don't think he's a good receiver, Ross. I don't want to come across that way at all. If he was a full-time receiver, he'd be a really, really good prospect. I just don't think it's going to play out that way. But like I said, I could well be wrong.
What about Egbuka from Ohio State, a
Yeah,
guy that we've been talking about for a couple years.
yeah.
Feels like he's been in Ohio State a long time. Thought he'd probably leave school last year with Harrison Jr. He didn't. What do you think of Egbuka from Ohio State, Greg?
I mean, for what he is, I love the kid. And I listened to him speak at the podium at the combine, and he speaks like a 10-year pro. I mean, this kid, he's predominantly a slot receiver at Ohio State. Now, the way the game has changed, that could mean a lot of things. I mean, you put him on a team like the Rams, and I'm not saying that's where he's going. Obviously they signed Devontae Adams, but you put him with teams that have a lot of reduced splits, and theoretically he could be an outside receiver in reduced split formations. But he's got a physical presence. There's a fluidity to him that shows up both as a route runner and with the ball in his hands. He really understands how to run routes, pace, tempo, different releases. His footwork is really controlled. I mean, he looks like a 10-year pro. I mean, the guy that I thought of when I watched him, and I watched him last summer. I watched all his 2023 targets. I've actually watched all his 2022 targets, his 2023 targets, and his 2024 targets. And last summer, the guy I thought of was Tyler Boyd in his prime. Because Boyd had like 3 or 4 years where he caught 90 balls, somewhere in that range. I think that Egbuka is just a pro. He's going to come in. He's going to do the right things. He's going to run the right routes. You can move him around a bit. He's not an explosive player. He's not a vertical guy. He's just, to me, just a really solid guy. He's going to play in the league for 12 years, and he's just going to be a really good player.
And so the reason why he's not thought of more highly is because he's not quite as explosive or dynamic as some of the other guys?
Yeah, he does not have that explosive element to his game. But, again, the way look, you could argue Puka Nacua doesn't have an explosive element to his game. He does with the ball in his hands, but not as a route runner running vertical routes. Think of it this way. And again, I'm not making direct comparisons, and people automatically think that. But think about guys who are really just precise route runners. Think what Amon-Ra St. Brown has done in the Lions offense. No one would say that Amon-Ra St. Brown has the physical traits of Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, because he doesn't. But he understands everything about route running to a high level. And you put him in an offense like that, and he's a volume receiver and a high-level volume receiver. If you dropped Egbuka into that offense instead of St. Brown, it's possible he could be the same guy in terms of volume targets, just because he just knows, he understands, he gets it. So, it all depends on where you go offensively and, what the route concepts are, what the coaching staff is. But Egbuka is a really quality receiver who understands the subtleties of the position.
It's really interesting. That was the name I was going to bring up, because the way you were describing him, Greg, I was like, gosh, that kind of sounds a little bit like what people said about Amon-Ra St. Brown when he was coming out.
And he was a 4th-round pick. So let's understand that Amon-Ra St. Brown, even though he had a really good career at USC, no one saw him just with his traits as a top 50 pick. So that's what, look at Puka Nacua. He was a 5th-round pick, I believe. So much depends on the offense you're in and how you're deployed. And, then guys can become volume receivers.
I'm going to throw several names at you, Greg. You can pick somebody off the board, but some guys I think are interesting. Trey Harris, Ole Miss, Jack Bech, TCU, Alec Iamaner from Stanford, the Iowa State kids, Isaiah Bond from Texas. The other one I really am curious about, Tez Johnson from Oregon. I watched a few Oregon games. Greg, you want to talk about someone that looked electric. I mean, he tore up Penn State, and then he ran a 4.5, which I was shocked by.
Yeah, well, we'll just mention Johnson real quick. Johnson's a fun watch. He weighed 156 pounds at the combine. That's the only concern you have. He's not tall like Devonta Smith. He doesn't have that long body, so he's really small. And again, now you're getting into the old Bill Parcells thing about exceptions. He's an exception. So the question is, can he be a really good NFL receiver, a contributing NFL receiver at his size? That's going to be discussed in draft rooms. I'm being honest with you. I don't have a brilliant answer for that, Ross. I don't know the answer to that. He's a fun watch. He knows how to get open. He's got great quickness, catches the ball, everything you would like. It's just he's 156 pounds. That's really small, and he doesn't have length. So, yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that. There's three receivers I'd quickly like to mention that you mentioned. One is Jack Bech. I did him before the combine, and I loved this kid. I thought he had a really refined, nuanced sense of route running, especially when he had free access off the ball. He knew how to set up defensive backs. Now, I wouldn't call him naturally explosive, but his hands are ridiculous. He can snatch the ball away from his frame. He can make contested catches through contact. He's really strong run after catch. You probably don't see him with his traits as, and I hate these terms, they're cliche to some degree, just because of what we've seen with guys in the league. You probably don't see him traits-wise as a wide receiver one, but I come back to someone like Puka Nacua, who is theoretically a wide receiver one. But I would say Bech, with his size, hands, physicality, competitiveness, run after catch, I think he can develop into a volume receiver depending on where he goes.
Wow. Okay. Who else you got?
The other guys I wanted to mention who I find fascinating are the two Iowa State kids. The big kid is Jayden Higgins. And I've done this kid for 2 years now. And I really, really like this kid. I mean, because he's 6'4" and 1/8, again, you're not going to say that he's sudden and explosive, but he's effortless in the way he moves. He's kind of a speed cut route runner. If you give him the more horizontal routes like slant, glance, crossers, overs, routes like that, I just think that he's a really good player. I mean, 6'4" and 1/8 is a trait. He's a big dude. So the question is he a boundary X at the next level, meaning the single receiver to the short side of the field, guys that get a lot of one-on-one coverage, and can he win in those situations? Or at 6'4" and 1/8, the team see him more as kind of a movement Z, the guy that's in motion on the strong side of the formation? I think that's a question that'll be discussed. The other wide receiver at Iowa State who I find really fascinating and is Jaylin Neal. Now this kid, there's a kid that ran exceptionally well at the combine. I think he ran under 4.4. Jaylen Noel, I guess it is. Excuse me, I don't want to be incorrect. Again, he played a ton in the slot, but he's 5'10" and a quarter, 194. Those guys can line up outside. And he does have a vertical element to his game. I'd be curious how he's evaluated by teams. Will he be seen as kind of a slot movement receiver? That's what he predominantly was at Iowa State. But he's got sudden lateral twitch. He can work between the numbers really, really well. He's really good run after catch. But he also showed vertical ability. So I find him to be one of the most intriguing receivers in this draft because he's not really little. Even though everybody might immediately say, oh, slot. But 5'10" and a quarter and 194 is not little. So I'm very curious about him.
Love these breakdowns every week, Greg. We got to do tight ends and O-line, and obviously get to the defensive side of the ball. Check him out on social media at Greg Cosell. Thank you so much, Greg.
Thanks, Ross. Appreciate it.
Gosh, I have such fond memories of going to the Eastern Regional in the college basketball tournament with my dad. If you guys have a chance to go to one of these, highly encourage you to think about taking the kiddos. You guys know my go-to app for tickets. It's the Game Time app, right? I mean, they've got the Game Time picks, which makes it easier to find better value for tickets. Not just sports, by the way. We use it for concerts and comedy and theater all the time. Plus the all-in pricing, the seat views, and of course the lowest price guarantee. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code ROSS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So again, Create an account and redeem code ROSS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Absolutely love watching college hoops. And you guys can drink some Labatt Blue Lights like I'll be drinking, and you can get cool gear. It's called Buy Beer, Get Gear. Go to rewards.labattusa.com to sign up. You get points for every purchase at any store, bar, or stadium, any size, any product, anywhere you're buying Labatt. Just upload it instantly. They'll be getting points on the court. You get points off the court. Rewards.labattusa.com.
Tuck's Takes.
All right, Ross, the biggest news, the Giants, they signed Russell Wilson to a one-year deal worth up to $21 million, including $10.5 guaranteed.
And I'm going to make this my Labatt take of the week, Jack.
With Labatt, you can buy beer and get gear. Go to their website, snap a photo of your receipt, and upload it to gain points towards exclusive merch. Any size, any product, anywhere you're buying Labatt. Sign up at rewards.labattusa.com.
This is just strange to me. I understand desperate times call for desperate measures, and maybe he's the best the Giants can get. But just think about for a second that we know that Joe Shane and Brian Daboll need to win this year. Maybe they'll still take a quarterback at number 3, but their best chance to win is a quarterback that had less interest and got less money than Daniel Jones, the guy they just got rid of. Not what you should be looking for if you're a Giants fan, that's for sure.
And Stefon Diggs, he reached an agreement on a 3-year, $69 million deal, including $26 million guaranteed with the Patriots.
This is similar to the Russell Wilson thing on some level to me, Jack, in the sense that the Patriots receiving core was horrendous, and they didn't want to necessarily have to take one in the draft. Diggs was the best available option. They're pinning a lot on the hopes that he recovers from this ACL. I think we need to see the details of the contract. It's probably worth a shot because where else are they going to get a number 1 wide receiver, although they still might take Travis Hunter. Other than that, I think we're done here.
That was an awesome weekend of basketball. I thoroughly enjoyed that while sipping on some delicious Smirnoff. You guys already know the mixers I like to use. By the way, we got the Sweet 16 already coming up again this weekend, starting Thursday night. Smirnoff, not only an official sponsor of this show, the NFL Draft, it's the perfect vodka for crafting delicious cocktails, easy to make, versatile for any and all fans over 21. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff number 21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Please not share with anyone under legal drinking age. We are a month away from the NFL Draft. Smirnoff, my number 1 pick when it comes to vodka, because first of all, it tastes delicious. Secondly, it's inexpensive. It's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. Smirnoff.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network on Samsung TV Plus, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com. You know I love it, as well as Sporticulture, Pizza Boy Brewing, HumanHeadNYC.com.